So, I had an idea. I wanted to try something different for this week's Daily Race C. As we know, Daily Race C this week was at Suzuka with Group 2 cars, and you had to use both medium and soft tires during the race. There was no mandatory pit stop, but you had to use both compounds. For the most part, the best strategy to use for this race was 7 or 8 laps of medium tires and then switch over to a stint of 4 to 5 laps of soft tires. But I wanted to do something different. What would happen if I did a 2-stop strategy? So instead of doing 8 laps of mediums and 4 laps of softs, what if I do 4 laps of mediums and 2 stints of 4 laps with soft tires? So my objective was the following. I wanted to do the 2-stop strategy starting from pole position, and I wanted to see if after the 2 stops, I would be able to at least finish in a podium. When I tried it out, the results were actually very surprising, and I'm gonna take you to the races so that you can look by yourself and see the results. Let's go, check it out. Now, big disclaimer with this race and with this experiment, these are not my typical lobbies as you were able to see from the grid. At the moment, I'm racing in my alternate account, which is based in my home country, Panama, in the Americas region. So this lobby is actually full of A and B rated drivers. It's not the typical strength of lobbies that I tend to play at in the EMEA region, for example. But still proved to be a good experiment and a good challenge given the fact that I was doing an extra stop compared to everyone else and having to jump myself into the traffic on my first stop when everyone was just keeping their first stint of either softs or medium tires depending on what they started with. So I'm leading the pace at this point, starting the race, lap 1, and I'm heading into Spoon for the first time. A little bit of a cinematic right there so that you can enjoy the view and see the train of cars, how they're heading down into 130R with me at the head. And I'm trying to just establish the pace at this point, trying to see how much of a gap I can build from P2. P2 actually had a little bit of pace, A+ driver as far as I could tell and I could see. So it was going to prove very fun to see how much of a gap I could actually try to build if I had any pace in me. So by the end of lap 2, I'm able to increase the gap almost by a double, from 0.6 of a second to close to 1.4, to just above double the gap from lap 1. And I established 46.1 for lap 2 as the fastest lap of the race at this point. And I keep improving ever so slightly throughout lap 3, so I finished sector 1 almost a quarter of a second ahead from my best lap. And then we head into the Degna curbs. I'm going to lose a little bit of time right here, but still almost 2/10 up from my best lap. Then again, a little bit of a cinematic is going to come through after taking this hairpin exit, jumping into the Casio Triangle for the 3rd time in the race. Pretty cool take right here if you ask me, with the NSX. So I'm heading down the straight, and now we're going to cross the line at lap 3, improving our time and getting just below the 46s, almost 0.3 of a second up. And I'm about to finish my medium stint at this point. So lap 4, jumping into the Casio Triangle one more time. We're heading into the pits for the first time. Sorry about that. I don't know what I almost said. And at this point, I have 3 seconds on top of P2. But that wasn't my biggest concern. My biggest concern was going to be where would I come out from the pits and how much traffic I would have ahead to go through. And at this point, I have 4 drivers in front of me, although 2 of them are going to go very quickly. As you can see, they go into a little incident. They try to rejoin, and they leave this little window so that I can thread the needle up, and I jump from P11 to P9 just in a snap of fingers. So now we know what we're dealing with. Captain Crunch, not Crunch, in P8, about to take the hairpin, and I'm just following through, trying to put some pressure. I get a good exit out of the hairpin right here. And now we're heading again into Spoon, almost side by side. He has a better run because I'm on the outside line. That's where you lose a little bit more time. Again, with the bumper cam from his point of view, he's going to outbrake himself into Spoon 2 and actually leave the gap open. And I am able to sneak in and have a good run into 130R. However, the GTR has better straight line speed at this point. So as you can see, he's actually pulling ahead, trying to take the outside line. And this is going to be the controversial moment right here that you might be able to tell me in the comments what you think about this one. So there's a little contact into the apex of 130R. I'm going to put the freeze frame right there. As you can see, there's not really that much of a room that I could have taken. I was trying to take the inside line. One could argue I could have backed off, but I felt I was owed a little bit more room to make my line right there. Either way, we get into normal programming right here. We're fighting against EMH, the Mexican driver, and we're gonna have a little bit of a cockpit cam right here, joining together into Techno 1, and I'm gonna pull this little move right here. He's gonna outbrake himself into the apex, and I'm able to do a little switcheroo, and my face says it all. I was actually very happy and pleased with that little move right there. Pretty sick, if you ask me. So now we're gonna head into 130R once again, lap 7, and I see too slow in front of me, and at this point I'm putting my best lap of the race so far, almost 8/10 up from my 45.8 established earlier. So we're gonna go into the Castro Triangle one more time. There's a driver that's gonna go into the pits right there at the end of lap 7. So I know he's gonna probably have a little bit more space while I put a sub 45 lap at the end of lap 7. He's gonna actually do the undercut or protect the undercut. So that's gonna be a little bit more fight. Too slow is gonna let me by in the S's. Pretty cool of him, actually. And he doesn't make it any more difficult for me. And then at the end of my first stint of soft tires, I'm gonna come in at P5, and by this point I'm switching into my second stint of softs, and now I know that if I ever want to win the race, I need 7 seconds to cut in 4 laps. But that's not the objective. We are at least trying to get a podium. So right here I can see the 3 drivers ahead. That's enough for a podium for me. P4 Jay Saucy or Susie. I shouldn't even try to pronounce those kind of names. I don't want to disrespect nobody. We're getting into the hairpin, and I am just following through. And here's going to be one of my crucial mistakes of the race. A little bit too much of curb in the apex of the hairpin. That's going to make me almost snap oversteer, and that's gonna lose me some time from P4 ahead. So we're finishing P9, Castro Triangle one more time, exiting in 3rd, trying to get a good run to see if I can cut that gap ever so closely, joining into turn 1. And at this point I'm 3/10 up from P4, and now we're heading into Spoon for lap 10. I have a little slide, but I actually managed to rescue it quite well, although I completely missed the apex on Spoon 2. And now I have the run into 130R. Slipstream is gonna help me to try to close that gap a little bit more. So now we're almost right there from the driver in P4, and I can see podium ahead as well in the straight, and even P1 all the way down into the straight, heading into turn 1, just shy of 5 seconds, just above 5 seconds, the gap. And here's where P4 is gonna make his mistake, heading into the hairpin for the 11th time. He's gonna allow me to take the outside line, and I'm happily gonna take that place, P4 now. And there's the 2 drivers right in front of me, P3 and P2, Big Xavier and Iron Horse BR, fighting to try to see who ends up ahead of each other. And we're gonna head for the final lap, right into the battle. And at this point I had already established the fastest lap of the race at a 44.7, so I know that I have the pace to try to get up to them, and if they battle it's going to be even closer for me to get it. So now we're heading into turn 1. I try to get a good exit, heading back into the hairpin one more time. They're going to try to follow their line. I think they're going to slow themselves a little bit down right here, and my exit actually is pretty good at this point. So let's focus now on the battle ahead, because Big Xavier is going to try to attempt this move into Spoon 1, taking the inside line, but he actually ends up bumping the Brazilian out of the track. And from my point of view, I see that, and I know that that's a position that I can take right there. And he slows even down Big Xavier right in front of me, so now I have a great run at 130R. And at this point, I got what I wanted, but I felt P2 was right there for me to grab. So I'm gonna head into 130R, take a little line to avoid the slipstream and any contact. I'm gonna take the attacking line. He's gonna try to cut across and defend. There's a little contact right there. He ends up pushed out of the track. And then Iron Horse from behind actually ends up snapping oversteer and bumping both of us. And the biggest beneficiary of that is Jay Saucy, in P3. He actually ends up taking the place. So let's go back and see that from Jay Zausi's point of view in a little while so that you can understand what happened right there. As you can see, we're both breaking into the apex. Our contact actually pushes Big Xavier out, and when Iron Horse is trying to power out, he actually ends up making contact with the green patch that spins him out, and then that makes contact with me, which delays my exit. And Jay Zausi actually had a amazing exit for himself, so he ends up stealing the podium. So I thought, let me try again, because if I'm this close, I can probably pull it off and make it happen if I play it smart enough. So jumping back into the race one more time, starting on pole position, trying to build a gap from P2. Some common names already seen, some new names in this race actually. So I needed to figure out where I was standing in terms of the traffic that I was going to have to deal with, and whether they were going to try to be very defensive and try to keep their places, or whether they were going to make a better time for me when I had to go out into traffic after the end of my medium stint. So at this point, I don't have the pace as I had in the previous race. I was actually a little bit slower at this time. As you can see, the gap was still just a second from P2 in this case at the end of lap 2. So I knew that I was a little bit slower in the pace on this race, trying to establish some type of lead and some type of direction. Finished the lap with a 46.2, which is not too far away with how we finished lap 2 at the start of race 1, but I'm making this mistake right here at the end of the SS, heading into Dunlop curve. Now we're heading into Degna, and I'm gonna take this line right here, but then I have this little moment where I almost oversteered the car and spun out. So I'm losing 4/10 at this point, and the gap is still under a second from Jay Little in P2. So we're heading back into Spoon. Not the greatest exit, not the most comfortable exit right there. Not that happy and content with the performance so far and the pace that I was having so far. Still ahead, but no improvement from the previous race. So now we're gonna head down into the end of lap 3. And as you can see, not amazing. Almost 3/4 of a second down and almost a 47. So I finished my stint with 2 seconds almost from Jay Little, and about to start my first stint of softs. And things weren't gonna get any better right here. We're gonna pull the camera on OJ Dissel, which is gonna have this little ram from behind on the driver that was right behind him. He actually is gonna take a little bit of sand, and when I try to make my move, he doesn't see me coming around from the outside. And in fact, I think I probably took a little bit too much of a narrow line on the outside, so I end up getting pushed into the sand. That's gonna be time that I lose. Then OJ Dissel's gonna pause the game, I believe, and he's gonna get rammed again into the sand. So we're gonna pass him just a few seconds later, and then he's gonna decide that that was enough. He doesn't want to have to do with this anymore. He rage quits. So that's one less person in the race, one less driver to think about. But now we have a lot more battle to go through. P10 at the end of lap 5 almost, and we are gonna head down into turn 1 for lap 6. Too slow again. One of the drivers from the previous race is gonna be ahead just shy of 2 seconds. And we're gonna try to cut that gap because there's work that we need to do, there's positions that we need to climb up if we wanna make this podium happen with the 2-stop strategy. So very quickly we can cut that gap almost a second now. And I'm putting my best lap in the race at this point. So now we're gonna head this moment against Too Slow where we're heading into the hairpin, and I'm gonna try to take the inside line, but actually the move isn't gonna be there. I'm not gonna have a clean exit. He almost snap oversteers, and now we're side by side heading into Spoon. No contact, no rubbing, pretty clean, but definitely not the cleanest move. There's a little rubbing right there about to head into Spoon, but he's gonna allow me the gap on the inside, so we take that position. Nothing major, it's just hard racing, but there we go. Climb 1 position, so now we're in P9. Backdoor galore in P5 is gonna overshoot the Casio triangle, the first apex, and then he snap oversteers and heads right into the sand almost at the end of lap 6. So that's another position that we take. Now we're in P8 and trying to think around how to get to that podium place, which at this point seemed very, very far away. So now we're about to head towards E-Laval or E-Lavalle. Not sure how to pronounce that either. But we're heading into the Dunlop curve at the start of lap 7. We're going to try to put the pressure in, try to make some mistake, force some mistake out of the driver. So he's going to have a slow run out of Degna 2. And I'm going to try to get the look on the inside and easy. So there we go. Attempt for the hairpin move. Right at the exit, we can see that I'm already ahead at this point. So that's another position that we are able to take. And at the end of lap 7 now, we're going to head back again into the Casio Triangle. We have 2 drivers in front. And there's going to be some contact right here. The driver in P5 actually overshoots the chicane. And then both of them are going to head into the pit stop. And little concertina effect actually makes me have some damage on my front bumper. But we keep going. Lap 8 now, we have 2 drivers right in front, just a second ahead of us. Second and a half right there. Iron Horse from the previous race, Jay Little that started P2 and still keeps the place up to lap 8. We're going to finish our first stint of soft tires. And P1 is also going to head into the pits to change from mediums to softs as well. So we know that 7 seconds, it's what distance is between the two of us. Vex, Saulo, and myself. So now Jepsik is gonna come ahead from our pit stop and jump into P5 once again. He was right entering the pits when we did the stint of lap 7. So now we have to put the pressure on him, see if we can make something stick and see if we can make something happen. He's gonna have a few moments right here coming out of Degna, and we're gonna try to make the look on the hairpin one more time. But it's not going to be there, so we have to brake a little earlier and keep P6 at this point. But we are going to keep applying the pressure all the way down out of spoon 2, and we're heading into 130R. I wanted to try to get the run on the outside, but actually ended up bump drafting him unwillingly. But that doesn't matter because we're going to head into the Casio Triangle. I'm going to have to look on the inside. He's going to give me plenty of space. Very well done. And we're going to take that place and jump into P5 at the end of lap 9. So now lap 10, we have work to do. 6.7 seconds ahead from P4, but we know that he's very close to the podium position. So if I'm able to capitalize from a mistake of any of the drivers in there is still something that can happen, and there's still the chances of a podium that we can concrete. So there we go. 5.5 seconds is now the gap in the middle of lap 10, about to head to the end and of 130R and heading into the Casio Triangle. I'm almost losing my words because things are too tense right here. And here's the mistake that I was hoping for. So Jay Little is actually going to spin out at the middle of turn 1, and I'm almost spinning out too right there. I actually had a little skid. So he's going to lose just about 4 seconds, and now that's going to put me in the looks and with a target right in front to try to at least capitalize one position. Still lap 11 though, there's still work to do, but I can see 2 drivers right in front, and there is the chance either 1 or 2 drivers. I think it's 1, but that's enough because that's what we need for podium positions. That's what we need for a 3rd place. But not too much progress done at the end of lap 11. Only about 3/10 I'm able to cut from Jay Little right there. So people were having some pace right there. They were making the job a lot more difficult. And now we're gonna jump into the final lap, and as per usual, we always let the final lap of every video just run by itself. Little to no cuts right here. So we're jumping into turn 1. He's gonna brake a little more than he should. So we're gonna cut a little bit of time right there. And now the gap is just shy of 9/10 of a second. We're going through the S's, having some flow, having some pace, trying to brake as late as we can and carry as much speed as we're able to carry. But here's gonna be something a little bit heartbreaking at this point because I'm overshooting Dunlop curve, almost going into the sand. My face says it all. The disappointment right there from that mistake. However, there was still chance because Jay Little was almost closing in into Takumi in P3, and they were going to actually have a little battle into the hairpin. Some contact happening right there. Both of them are actually going to have some delay on their exits. So now, even though the gap is 2 seconds, we're cutting that a little bit, ever so slightly, into the final lap, heading into Spoon now. We're hoping that there's still something left in the tank that we can capitalize from and take that podium position. So now we're heading to Spoon 2, trying to get to that apex and trying to get the cleanest exit that we can. It's not the cleanest, but it's a good enough run because there's still a battle ahead, and now the gap is less than 1.5 seconds. Heading toward 30R for the last time in the race, and this is now gonna happen right in front of our faces. There's contact between Takumi and Jay Little actually in the rear, so Jay Little's gonna get pushed out of the track, and we're gonna be able to at least capitalize on one spot. No podium, but ever so close, just half of a second from Takumi and from that podium that we were so much wanting. So a good few races right there where we were trying something different. We were trying to see if we could pull it off. As with anything in racing, the outcome of a race isn't just determined by you and you only. There are so many factors in a race that can play up. No matter what though, all that matters is just to try to keep the most consistency that you can throughout your own race and control what you can control and try to keep it as smooth and calm as you can ever do. It was still a good challenge. It was still very good to try to see how it could pan out, how much I could actually get out of something that unusual and that different. So it was a good experiment, and even though we didn't get the outcome of or the objective that we wanted, it was still a good test for me to try to keep increasing my racecraft and try to get better at racing. So if you enjoyed that, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. Drop me a comment below of what was your favorite overtake of the races that you watched, and I'll definitely see you on the next one. So see you later.